our Second Amendment is not up for debate. But there are people in our country who think that their fear of guns justifies regulating your right to keep and bear arms. And the policies that these anti-gunners support are typically, the cause of a lot of the violence that we see in our streets. But if we were to shine a spotlight on the real problem, human violence, we would have to look at failed policies. And there are some people who don't want to do that. So it's much easier to focus on the gun. Now, we have definitely a split in ideologies in our country, a split that goes right down the middle, and we don't always understand each other, left to right. On the left, it seems that we have people who like rules, regulations, restrictions, laws, and I think that they like that sort of thing because it creates a structured environment. It creates a structured society. It's safe to them. They don't need to make a lot of decisions. When you have rules and regulations, it's safe for some people. Now on the right, we have people that say, get the hell out of my way. I'll do what I want, when I want, where I want, and I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, where to go, and definitely not what to think. We're free people in this country, and we will take responsibility for our failures, but we'll also reap our own rewards. That's the difference between the left and the right. It's the difference between a controlled society and freedom. But I don't think that everyone on the left wants to control you as much as they like being controlled. But in this country, we have the Constitution, we have the Bill of Rights, and that explains to anyone listening that these are our freedoms and our rights. If we look at some of the violence in our country, we'll see that there are 4 cities that make up 25% of the violence in our country, the violent homicides. Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, and the very city that we're in today. These happen to be some of the most gun-restricted cities in our country. So what does that tell you about how gun restrictions affect violence? You know, when you take away the ability for people to defend themselves, you take away the opposition to the bad guys. The Second Amendment affords us the right to defend ourselves and our families, and it builds in an opposition. Without that opposition, the bad guys go crazy. I wanted to talk about one thing in particular, and most important, is you've heard people say, well, you know, I support your Second Amendment, but I think we need common sense gun restrictions. Well, you can't do both. You can't support my right to keep and bear arms while restricting my right to keep and bear arms. But there are some people who don't see the difference, and they blur the definitions of rights and privileges. There are people who are being conditioned to do this. This is why we have people saying things like that. A privilege is something that's given. A privilege can be taken away. A privilege, you might use privileges with your kids. You know, maybe your kid doesn't do their homework, so they lose the privilege of staying up past 10 o'clock. Privilege is used for leverage. A right cannot be taken away. A right is inherent. It's part of being human. It's God-given. But there are people in our country that don't see the difference. They see rights as privileges. So we're here today to announce to anyone and everyone listening that our Bill of Rights is not our Bill of Privileges. Our Second Amendment is not up for debate, and we will not negotiate the right to keep and bear arms. Thank you very much.